We are back with Cultivated Live from Planet 13 in Las Vegas. I'm Jay, Krista, Jeremy, Frederika Easley. Thank you so much for being here from the People's Ecosystem. Before we dive in, and we were actually chatting before we even went live about things we're not going to talk about now, including laundry and hockey and sweat. Tell us a bit about the People's Ecosystem, and then we'll dive into it.
Yeah. So the People's Ecosystem is a company ran by three dynamic, amazing women: Christine De La Rosa, we have Melanie Davis, and we have Chef Charlene Kaabay. She was the first Filipino to win Chopped. And so she's our Chief Innovation Officer. Melanie is our Operations Officer, and Christine is the CEO. They're also a part of the LGBTQIA community, and so we are centered on equity. We currently have manufacturing in Santa Rosa, California, and Albuquerque, New Mexico, with some things coming on the horizon in Q1, so look out for it. Michigan and Illinois. Specifically with the company, I do a number of things. So one, I have a podcast, People Are Blunt, where we talk about all blunt things, pun intended, with cannabis. I also analyze policy rules and regulations, looking specifically with the equity lens, so areas where language can intentionally or unintentionally do harm to communities that have already been devastated and impacted by the successful war on drugs. Because people like to say it wasn't successful, but it actually did what it was intended to do, right? To demonize Black, Latinx, indigenous people. And so also, at Benzinga, we announced a joint venture with 240L Logistics. And so we have developed a company called Eco 240, where we are marrying the ecosystem that we've built in the industry. So all of the brands, all of whether it's ancillary or plant touching, but all of the people that we know, right? All of our homies. We are marrying that with logistics and trying to take the guessing out of this whole industry, making sure that the right product is on the right shelf at the right time.
I love that.
Yeah.
That
She's
literally
so good,
is
right?
magic to my ears.
Can I want to dive into the People's Ecosystem, but how we first connected.
Yeah.
We're actually talking about 280E and rescheduling, which versus all the things and watching gummies get made doesn't sound as sexy as if we were talking about gummies or brands. But talk a little bit about that, because not that you have an unpopular opinion, but you were voicing positivity towards rescheduling, which wasn't online. People aren't always saying that. But talk a little bit about that and what it means for you in the People's Ecosystem.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the reality. Because cannabis is still a Schedule 1, right, federally illegal, businesses are not, they're not afforded the opportunity to seek capital in the way that normal businesses are, right? You can't just go to a bank and try and take out a loan, right? Now you add on to that, being a business that is run by women, you add on to that, race relations, which we know is a real thing, right? And so I think it was 2 years ago, Crunchbase came out with a report that said, out of VC capital, only 2.8% goes to women and minority-owned businesses, right? So if you bring that into cannabis, it's even less, right? It's probably maybe not even a full percent. And then that, when you tack on to what happens for early capital influx, it's even less, right? Because they want proof of concept, right? So what we need, or all small businesses need, is the opportunity to actually have an easier, non-predatory way of supporting your business, of being able to scale your business, of being able to operate in this space. What we also need is the research, right? Because as we're on this road to normalizing cannabis, normalizing consumption, we haven't even tapped into this plant, in terms of the full spectrum and knowing about it and what it's capable of and all the cannabinoids and how it interacts with your cannabinoid system, our internal systems. And so we need that research. So all of this goes inches, towards that finish line, which is for it to be totally descheduled and for it to be normal and just this everyday thing of life, right? So part of what we were talking about was that. Another part we were talking about is look, I've never read any policy that was foolproof, right? And that didn't need to be tweaked. Policy has to build on each other. And so as we're trying to normalize, as we're trying to figure this all out, we have to keep moving, right? There has to be progress. And so this would be progress, right? This would be something to allow us to take a step forward, to hopefully ease concerns and fears as we learn more about the plant, as we continue to see entrepreneurs and business owners handling business in a normal way, right? Businesses pay so much in taxes, like 280E is freaking crazy. And so, I mean, it really hinders business owners from being able to scale, from being able to reach their full potential.
So in policy debates, and I've covered this a lot, there's tension between incrementalists, which from what I'm hearing is sort of your position, and maximalists, right?
Yeah.
The question is, what is the maximalist perspective on why rescheduling can be bad for social equity focused folks in the cannabis industry? And why? How do you sort of intelligently debate that?
Yeah, I mean, so here's the thing. Cannabis is, and even as you're talking about legalizing, you're talking about, decriminalizing, it's a very emotional thing. It's emotional.
Yeah.
Because you literally have people who are still paying with their lives. There are people in jail, right? There are families that have been broken, families that have been ruined, people who have lost time that they can never get back for a plant that others are making money on right now, right? So it's very emotional, and so you have this kind of like zero-sum game of like, we want it all, and we want it all right now, and we actually deserve that, right? So I don't want to come across as like that's not something that that is deserving, right? We deserve that. People have paid, right? And the only reason why cannabis is being regulated is because legacy showed you just how profitable it is, right? And so now this country wants their piece of the pie. They want that revenue. They want that tax revenue. I think the thing is that I like to deal in facts, right? The road to a comprehensive reform, it has to go through our system. It has to go through the Senate. It has to go through the House. And so I just ask people, can I cuss on this?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. So
please.
Do you even think that shit can happen? Like, I mean, like if we're going to be real and we look at who's in office, right? And we look at, where they stand on this. And I mean, like, look, every other week is like they can't even pass the budget. Like we are like
can't even decide on a Speaker of the House.
I mean, couldn't even get a Speaker of the House. So these are the people we talking about here, okay? Right. And so it's like, do you really think that can move, that can be done, right? So I think for me, it's not an either or, it's an and thing. It's like we got to put it all out there. You know what I'm saying? We have to put it all out there. And we have to support it all, and we have to make sure that the guardrails are in place so that communities don't get left behind. And specifically for safe banking, and when you're talking about like 280E and things of that nature, a lot of the argument stems around, big businesses, multi-state operators, whatever, they're going to have additional access to cash, right? Like they're going to be able to take advantage of this. But there's no legislation that you can create and push forward that they're not going to be able to benefit. Like, I mean, anytime you have a whole group that is not able to benefit from something, then the lawsuits are going to come, right? Like, anytime you try and structure it in that way, the lawsuits are going to come. The reality is, like, they already have money, right? They have a network that is worth a lot, right? So they're borrowing money from their friends. They have, they have the means already. And so, yes, are they going to have some access to it? Absolutely. There's no way that you can keep them from having or from being able to benefit in some way. But for that mom and pop, right, like for the new entrepreneur that has mortgaged their home, that has robbed Peter to pay Paul, that has, borrowed from friends and family in $1,000, $5,000, $10,000 increments, like this is going to mean the world to them. This is the difference between them actually like staying and being able to make it through those first 3 years as a business to hopefully reach black, right? Like to actually be able to sustain themselves versus not. And so we have to be mindful of that, like what's at stake. And it's immediate. And the need for banking the need for 280E relief, and the need for banking, those are like immediate things, right? It's also a safety issue, right? When these businesses have to operate in cash. So we you know what I'm saying? Like, we got to think about, or at least I do. I think about, like, okay, but what about the now? Because if somebody is in survival mode, like, if we look at Maslow's hierarchy, right? Sure. Bottom level, right? Like, if I'm in survival mode, you can't talk to me about this stuff over here. Like, you can't tell me, oh, you should have a savings and you should be eating better, when it's like, bitch, I'm hungry now. And I don't care about that salad. Like, I need something that's going to, like, sustain me and bring me through the day. And also, like, I'm just trying to make it. So we got to get people out of the I'm just trying to make it phase.
I think I'm going to do the annoying thing and make a statement that
okay.
I'll ask you to respond to, not a question. But I want to sort of hit on a couple points. Like, one, the zero-sum game. You know, I think from what I've covered these debates, it's not a zero-sum game. The second piece is that, you know, these MSOs, I think, to advocates are a little scary. But, you know, I've been reporting on them for 5 years, and I looked at their balance sheets. It's not Unilever. Like, they're not that scary. They need a lot of help. And so the statement I'm trying to make is there's a lot of middle ground that a rising tide can lift all boats, but it's how you create that argument. Because just by the way I look, when I write about social equity, I get pushback from everyone all the time. There's no easy answer, but we try.
Well, I think,
and you made the argument much better than I ever have.
No.
We're going to can that, what you just said, and we're going to run it on repeat.
I think a lot of times the issue is that equity is looked at as a handout, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to something that is owed, right? And anytime you look at someone receiving something that they don't have skin in the game with, it makes it difficult, right? It makes it difficult. I would also kind of argue that in terms of that rising tide, you know, anytime you take care of the most marginalized, it makes it better for everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you operate with that in mind, everyone will be okay. Everyone's gonna be okay. Stuff doesn't run. You know, there's this idea that you take care of the top and it'll, like, trickle down, right? It's not the case, right?
I think Reagan tried to make that argument.
Correct.
Yeah.
It doesn't work. It doesn't happen. Like, greed is a thing. We're in this capitalist society. People want more. You know what I'm saying? And so what you really have to do is, like, make sure that, like, we're raising the base level. You know what I'm saying? So that's how I look at it.
No, it's a really good point. I didn't mean to get so esoteric. But
I love this conversation, and I love you, and that's why I wanted you to come in. And I'm glad you yelled at me at the Cosmo.
I was like, "Hey, what up?" Did you not see my message?
No, I did, but you know when you get that, you hear someone yell, and it's like, my mind generally goes to that I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
Like, oh,
I have a mom voice.
Yeah, I was like, but my mom's not here. I don't think someone's yelling at me.
What did I do?
But I really appreciate you coming by and sharing your perspective, because I think it is an important one.
Yeah.
And you deliver it really well.
Well, thank you.
And I think it actually is one that resonates with certainly us, but also with the industry overall. So I appreciate that. And I hope as days and weeks and months go by, you'll share this perspective with us again on a variety of different things.
And congratulations on this.
Yeah, we're
on Cultivated News. This is so dope.
No, we're having a good time.
Yeah. And, like, what a way to put it out there.
Yeah.
You know
but
what
this
I mean?
is the peak right now. This moment having a conversation. So it's all downhill from here on future guests. No, I'm just kidding. No, we really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
There will be more peaks.
I know we have a whole nother day tomorrow.
There will be more peaks. Yeah, absolutely.
But
thank you for having me.
Frederika, thank you so much for being here. We're going to take a quick break to let everybody switch chairs. We'll be right back with Liam Polsky from Elevated Signals, another Canadian company. But we're going to do nerd talk again with cannabis and technology. But Frederika, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
We'll be right back.